I'm going to take an off-the-shelf Harbor Freight tubing rolling bender and show you how to modify it so that your rolls come out true and flat every single time. You're going to have to modify your rollers by removing the roller pins and shimming them to get the wobble out. Be certain to keep the rollers aligned to their centers. What I'm going to show you by the end of this video is how to keep your work from warping and twisting while you're rolling your tube. I'll show you a way to modify your roller so that you'll have more professional results every single time. I had on hand 1.25 inch square tube. I just used what I had on hand. I had 1 inch round bar and 1 inch electrical conduit. The round bar is measured on the outside diameter. Electrical conduit is measured like pipe on the inside diameter. So they made a perfect match. So I constructed a square frame with my 1 1/4 inch square tube, and that is a chassis for you to mount the roller on. One of the things I noticed in all the other videos is they have the roller going vertical, and that's not a good way to ensure that you're going to have your work come out looking square, and I'll show you why in a minute, being true. So I'm welding this little chassis up, just tack welding it, doesn't need to be anything fancy. I of course welded it on top and bottom, just little tack welds, that's all you need. Now I'm putting the wheel on top of this little chassis frame. There we go. Next I'm going to do my cuts on my round bar, conduit, and some threaded bolts. You need 2 of the 1 inch bars and 2 conduits. You want to I made these bars about 12 inches and the conduit about 10 inches. So the conduit is going to slip over the 1 inch round bar. And that's for your tubing or your pipe to roll on top of. Those are going to be like little rollers that we're going to attach to the frame with adjustments. And you go ahead and add a little bit of lubricant to these before you put the conduit over, because you're going to weld your all thread on the ends of this. Now I use my little square magnets that I got from Harbor Freight to position the bolts. So now it's important that these bolts be lined up exactly square and exactly true, because they're going to have to raise and lower your little rollers. Now that I have the posts secured and true, I can go ahead and tack those up. And making sure that my measurements are right, I went ahead and welded a couple pre-drilled holes on the flat bar and attached them. These go down, Now you can see I have the machine horizontal and I have those rollers on the end to support the pipe. Now the next thing that's really important to do is to level out your machine. Okay, see how that handle rotates? We don't want that to happen to our tubing. So I'm leveling out the machine. I'm getting it all on center. And I'm also adjusting these two little rollers on the end that support the pipe, because you're going to want to bear down. This is extremely important to get your level out. Notice everything has to be level. The little crossbar, it's nutted so you can raise and lower it with the different pipe dimensions. Now those have to be level too. So everything has to be level. You do this and then all your jobs are going to be very easy to do. You're not guessing, it's taking all the guesswork out. There, I've taken time to adjust and level the nuts on the back end. Now I'm leveling that out. Everything's level. Now I can start running my tubing. These railings make up 360 degrees, so a segment of 4 rails divided up by a quarter each, and 2 sets of rails, so it's 8 total. So I figured out the geometry. Basically, I cut my lengths to 10 feet, divided it in half by 5. Then I measured off from the 5 foot, 42.5 inches from center to center. Then as I roll, I measured the difference between the 42.5 inches and it eventually becomes 40 inches. Now it's better to start out really slow and rather than to try to undo your mistake. I also double checked the 40 inches against the 74. The 74 actually from the center to center and the top is the perfect measurement. Since I'm rolling these by myself, I don't have anybody to hold a level on the tubing. So I've devised these stands. I put buckets on the stands and then fill them with sand, about 20 pounds each. And then I attach the tubing to the stands. Now the first thing I'm going to do is measure and make sure it's 10 feet. And it is. So I need to just find half. It's 5 feet. And before you do this, you should take the top off the pen. Now I'm going to make a complete circle so I'm not struggling with my tape measure. Now I measure the 42.5 inches from the center. And again, I draw a complete circle or line around the tube. I just like my markings to be very clear. Also, if you mark it, pre-mark it, it'll give you the perfect angle of cut when you have to trim these pieces and not guess which way is perpendicular. So, pre-mark and you won't have a problem. Now everything is double measured, and so I'm making sure that the stand is the same height as the little roller. Again, you need to tighten that roller down nice and tight. Everything's level, so all the work is done. You feed the tube in loose, fairly loose, so that it'll drive through. Now you're setting the limits of the height to these weighted stands, making sure the stands are not the right height. Feed the tube through. Checking the level, making sure it's all nice and level. Now I clamp my work to the T, getting it closer to the center. Clamp it nice and hard. Notice now I'm going to do the other end. Now the table poses a little bit of a problem for clearance, so the first couple passes I probably shouldn't even worry about you attaching the bucket yet. So you see clearly, sorry about the bumpiness. Now I'm rolling it in, making sure that it's nice and level. Okay, we're not in contact with it, so I'm going to adjust it. Okay, I've made all my final adjustments, added a few more clamps to the device, and now I'm going to start turning it slowly, making sure that the whole thing stays level through the first pass. Now I first start running my length nice and slow, keeping an eye on both the buckets. This one's just making sure that it's in there nice and straight, basically. See, I'm not really... Okay, now that it's level, I attach both ends with the stands with the buckets and sand. Now that keeps the pressure constant on those rollers on the end of your tubing roller. If you have a person, you can do this a little quicker. They can just hold a level out on the end of the tube and adjust it. And you can really go fast, particularly with a machine-driven. But with the hand-driven and being slow, this works fine for a one-man operation. Now I do put a piece. This is my first one, so I'm not going to mark the threads yet on the machine. Now my bend is well established. The thing stays flat. You don't have a spaghetti piece of aluminum. Now I check my measurement. It's 40 inches. And I might check my measurement to see if it is 78 inches. 40 inches, again, double checking. See if I have to bend it anymore. So I'm going to just tighten it up just a skosh. Better a little bit than too much. Oh no, I'm undoing it. It's done. It's baked. Okay, I'm pulling the first one out and loosen it up a bit. Now we remove it from the machine and lay it flat on the ground. This is my first of many. And let's see. Nice and flat. No spaghetti. Let's turn the camera on it. There, nice and flat, perfectly flat. That's the first of many. Now, that's the first of 8. Now I've speeded it up so that you can kind of get a picture of how these little buckets attach to your railings. It's kind of a slow process, but they're going to be flat and true, no twisting, no spaghetti. You're going to be real happy with your results. Now, I know it's flat, so I don't have to put it on the floor, but I did anyway. I do on every single one. But you can see now I'm comparing it to the same bend on every one.